Welcome to episode 4 of the Perth Blue Baggers pod. My name is Louis, your host.
And I'm Marty on special comments.
So in this episode, we will be reviewing our round 11 clash against the Gold Coast Suns and previewing our round 12 clash against Port Adelaide. So let's get into it.
Well, Owies, dangerous around goal. Centering ball. Owies, Andrew arrives, but he's too late. Should be a second for a fast start for the Blues. Carlton have got 3 on the board. So Doug Nichols round, and a great celebration from Williams.
We secured our 7th win at Marvel Stadium in round 11, defeating the Gold Coast Suns by 29 points. We bounced back from last week's defeat to Sydney in dynamic fashion. Patrick Cripps was in top form with 31 disposals and 13 clearances. Zach Williams had a career-high 4 goals in a new positional masterclass. Charlie Curnow helped to put the game to bed in the second half with 4 goals, leading the Blues to an emphatic win. So, what key aspects were pivotal to the win?
Oh, look, this was a real danger game for us because we'd lost 3 out of the last 4 and we really needed the confidence boost. And Gold Coast had come off a big win against Geelong the week before too. But the thing about the Suns, they don't travel that well. And we had some handy ins as well. Lockie Fogarty coming back in was really helpful. Adam Sard back in too. They're both really handy players in their own ways. We got out of the block pretty fast again, which was good to see. We kicked the first 3 goals of the game.
Yeah.
That really makes a difference because then your opponents are chasing you. So we'll need to do that next week. But we really, especially in the first half, struggled to shake off Gold Coast. They kicked the next 2 goals of the game, and for much of the first half, in particular the second quarter, we dominated a lot of the play, but we didn't really put the score on the board. We only kicked 4 goals, 9. So in a way, we kept them in the game. We should have been much further in front at half-time. Compare that to the 11 goals, 3 in the second half. I mean, same scoring shots, same number of scoring shots practically, but just being more efficient in front of goal made a big difference. The big difference was a 7-goal burst at the end of the third and into the fourth. The first half of the fourth quarter was sensational. And Charlie Curnow really stood up in the second half. He was pretty well held in the first half by McAndrew, but he really started dominating the second half. I didn't think our wins had a big impact, but Fogarty did supply his usual forward pressure, which makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And as you say, Williams was fantastic up forward.
Yep. So, were there any improvements, do you think, that win, apart from maybe the goal accuracy?
Oh, look, the goal accuracy was a big thing, but I think that one of the big differences between last week and this week is we moved the ball more effectively.
Yeah.
I think Sydney are very good at getting numbers behind the ball, and we struggled to move it very fast. So every time we tried to go forward, your Curnows, Mackay's, those sort of players couldn't find the space that they needed to.
Yeah.
And so they kind of strangled us. Particularly in the second half, we started to really break loose. The turnovers, scoring from turnovers was more effective. We started dominating the clearances and moved forward fairly quickly from them.
Yeah.
Cripps was fantastic with 13 clearances. He was great. So those sorts of things made a big difference in the second half.
Yeah, I reckon Cripps was a tiny bit more prominent in the first half than the second half. I think he already had 10 clearances by then. I don't know.
Yeah, look, I thought he was pretty good all game. Had the most clearances on the ground.
Yeah. And
the other one's TDK. He was fantastic as well.
Yeah. Well, while we're doing that, I guess we've already led into the notable performances, so let's get into those votes.
Yeah, I had Cripps tops. I thought he was good all game. 31 disposals, 16 of them contested. Game high, 13 clearances.
Yeah.
6 tackles. So, the thing about Cripps is he does the work when he doesn't have the footy as well. Kicked a goal. That was a lovely, Rovers goal that he kicked at a handy time in that big burst that we had. It was just one of those Cripps games where he really led from the front. So 5 votes to Captain Cripps for me.
Good.
Charlie, I'm giving him 4. He may have had a quiet first half, but he almost won the game off his own boot just about in the second half. He really exploded. And the game was in the balance in that third quarter. And that's when he really stood up. And every team needs one of those players. If you don't have a player that can take the game by the scruff of the neck, then you're going to struggle when it's a tight tussle. And he's the one that really stood up. He went much deeper into the goal square. He was one out. He took a couple of really big contested marks. One which was taken off him, which I thought was a bit stiff from someone else's infringement, which I thought he was a bit unlucky there. But kicked 4 goals. He had 12 scoring involvements. We only kicked 15 goals. So he's practically involved in every time we went forward. For me, I'm giving him the 4 votes there, just because it was a real game winner for us today.
Yeah.
Look, the other guy I think we've got to get him in the votes, and that's Zach Williams. Just as Charlie was good in the second half, Williams really was one of those few players that stood up really well in the first half. And he's pretty good all game, really, in front of goal. Kicked 4 goals straight, which is pretty good for us.
Yeah.
Great return for Zach. I thought he just attacked the footy harder, used his smarts well. He had 9 score involvements, so he was up and about in much of our forward for ace as well. So certainly his best ever game up forward for us. I don't know where that sits for his best game for the club, but he certainly had a big impact for us, I thought. 2 votes. TDK. In fact, he could have given 3 or 4. Tom DeConey was great. He was good all game. 25 touches for a ruckman is a lot of ball.
I think that's his career high.
Oh, there you go.
Count.
Career high. Well, I didn't know that, but that's impressive.
Yeah.
Look, he just seemed to be everywhere. He worked really hard. I think there's a really interesting question now. We won a lot of games when Pitnet didn't play. TDK was in scintillating form without Pitnet. It's back to that question again. I mean, it's hard on Pitnet because he was very good.
The clearances,
He's been in our votes himself, Pitnet, when he's played. I think, though, TDK might play a little bit better without him. It's a really tough question, isn't it? Had 10 clearances on his own. Second highest clearances on the ground for a ruckman.
Yeah.
It just goes to show 15 contested possessions, 8 score involvements. Like, he really was fantastic today, TDK. And when he really gets going, his ceiling is so high. He's capable of all sorts of things. So 2 votes for TDK. 1 vote for Walsh. Look, he probably deserved more. He was good all day. 32 touches. I think it was the most on the ground. 25 contested. He just runs really, really hard. 4 tackles, so he works off the ball as well. He's a fantastic player. I think Cripps and Walsh, once again, they really stood up.
Yeah, and also about Walsh, who'll probably get the Brownlow votes, you'd think.
Well, the Brownlow, we're not them, so like they always give them the midfielders, don't they?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Cripps and Walsh are both involved in the Brownlow votes. Whether they find someone from Gold Coast or not, I'm not sure. But for mine, I think you do have to look at those key position players as well, and their forwards and backs. I mean, there was a number of other players who were pretty stiff, not getting a go, not getting in the votes. I mean, Nick Newman was great again.
Yeah.
Fantastic, really consistent. Jacob Wiedering was really good. Akers ran all day, did some really good things. McGovern was pretty consistent. Had a slight sort of injury concern for a little bit, but came back on.
Yeah. He's all good.
Yeah. For an underrated player, I thought Lockie Cowan was really good.
Yeah.
He had 19 touches, blanketed his opponent, got plenty of the ball himself. One of his best games for the club, I thought. I think he had 5 intercept possessions, 4 tackles, 8 marks. He's really amongst it, Cowan. He of course, he came back in after a couple of good games for the Magoos. I reckon he's probably earned his spot for at least another week or 2, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And if he plays like that every week, he'll keep playing in the ones.
Yes. So that was probably our most positive review of the game, I reckon, so far. And in our time doing this. So let's get into the preview of round 12 versus Port Adelaide.
And the siren is about to ring out around Marvel Stadium. And it's absolutely marvellous if you're a Carlton fan. It's 4 in a row this season. Has been turned on its end. It's a Carlton charge towards September, most unexpectedly. For Port Adelaide, it's the end of the streak, but it's not the end of the world. The Blues get home by 50 points.
Oh, look, this will be a hard one. There's no doubt about
Yeah.
it. Port are second on the ladder, and they are very good at home. And if you let them get off the chain, they are very dynamic. So we're really going to have to work hard. They have some of the most, quickest, most explosive players in the AFL. But I would say, if you really put the pressure on them, they can fold too. I think that there's a big difference between their best and their worst. Some of the other teams are probably more consistent than Port. But it's hard to fault them being second on the ladder. Look, there's Rosie and Butters and Horn Francis. Their three key midfielders are very dynamic players.
Yeah.
And they'll tear you apart if you give them an opportunity. You've got Rosie that's really consistent, Butters that's the explosive type, Horn Francis that's really coming into his own there. I expect either Kennedy or Hewitt to tag one of them. But, you can't tag three players, really. You've got to go and get your own ball. So it's interesting which one of them you tag because they're all pretty dynamic.
Yeah.
I think there's a big job for Kennedy or Hewitt or both of them to play a defensive role on one or two of those players. And I think the two-way running will be really crucial again. We're going to miss someone like Cottrell who provides that, but Akers will be really good, and Ollie Hollands and guys like that to cover a lot of ground. I think for us, Curnow and Mackay, they're always hard to stop.
Yeah.
Aaliyah will get one, but I don't think many teams have the capacity to stop them both, particularly if we can get the ball to them quickly into space. If our ball movement's slow again, we'll find it a bit tricky. So we've got to move the ball fast. We are going to have to take a couple of risks against them. We'll have to run back defensively. I noticed the big difference that Voss said recently is that the work that we do when we don't have the ball is really crucial. So no team will that matter more against than Port Adelaide. They'll rip you apart if you give them an opportunity.
Yes. They also have Radikalia in their backline, which is they picked up over the trade period last year. So
just a note on the
that.
injuries too. We've got a few players still out. Cherry's still another 3 to 4 weeks away. Cottrell's another 3 to 4 weeks away. They're big outs. Cunningham's 2 to 3 weeks. Motlop, though, was back playing for the twos, the reserves. I don't think from all accounts he had a brilliant game, but that's okay. We just want to see him out there.
Yeah.
And I think he probably will need another game or two playing for the twos before he's considered. But I think a fully fit Motlop should be in our 22.
Yeah.
He's quite a dynamic player. The other one's Pitnet's got a finger injury. We'll see when he's available again. There's that unanswered question about what that 22 looks like when it turns to the ruck. Pitnet, he's been playing really well this year. Guess we'll see.
Yeah. So I just want to get into some news. So you might have already heard the news. I will be co-hosting a podcast with Carlton Blues 24 on Wednesday. So make sure you check that out. All the details, you'll be notified on Instagram when it's out. So tune into that. So thank you for watching episode 4 of the Perth Blue Baggers pod. If you have any thoughts about the game, please comment below or DM us on Instagram. If you haven't already, please subscribe to us on YouTube and follow on Instagram. If you have any suggestions, please comment or DM too. Thank you. Up the Baggers.
Carlton the Blues.